But I am very honored to be here today. Somebody asked, are you preaching today? I said, we'll see what happens. We'll just see where the Lord leads us. But I'm very honored that Pastor Nathan asked me to share the message with you guys today. I know that he takes the pulpit very seriously, so it means a lot that he's entrusted me with the chance to do that. So thank you, Pastor, for that. Well, for those of you guys who did not know, like I said, I've been gone at camp for about 14 days total, with about a day or two in between of rest. Granted, I have 3 children at home, so rest is in quotations. But while we were gone, we saw many different things happen at camp. We had kids that got saved that would tell us later, I've been in a Christian home my whole life. My family thought I was saved, but really I never made that personal decision, and I did this week. And we had kids who had come to the church this last year who were very fresh to what church was. And they came to camp with us, and on the first night, they said, man, I want to make that decision. On the second night, they realized there were some things that they had been dealing with. They said, I don't need that anymore, and I can give that to God. And on the third night, the Holy Spirit night, the presence of God fell, and that kid just became overwhelmed. Till afterwards, about 30 minutes, an hour after service ended, we're eating dinner, and he's crying, eating a piece of pizza, trying to get through it, praise God. And we're like, listen, I'm so happy for you, but you do need to eat because you'll die. But we saw some things happen for these kids. Lives were changed, and I am always so happy to go to camp. I've been going to camp for 14 years this year. It's really my 14th camp year I've gone. My body shows it sometimes. I've had people notice more and more often that I have gray in my hair, and thank you for pointing that out, first off. I love that. But I started having gray hair at about the age of 17, and I think it's because of camp. I don't know if it's genetics. I think it's camp. But when I came back from camp, came back on a Wednesday night from little kids camp, and we came home to the church. We dropped everybody off, and I knew that we had Wednesday night service that night that we needed to get ready for. Now, luckily, I had done some prep work ahead of time, knowing that we had things to do, but there were still some of those last-minute details I needed to knock out. And so I had a decision. I could stay with my 2 kids who had gone to camp with me, who were exhausted and ready to fall asleep, and make them come with me to get things done, or I could go home and take a nap and come back and get it ready before service. So I elected to take a nap. I went home. I fell asleep. And I don't believe it's my fault, but I do believe that the phone either stopped working or my wife did not wake me up. I don't know who was at fault, but I won't cast blame here because she's in the room. And so what ended up happening is I ended up sleeping a little longer than I should have. Hello, sweetie. And you're on the front row. That's scary. But we continued on, and we went to church, and we had an argument. We had a disagreement. I was tired. My mental capacity was not all there. I had just come off of 14 days of full camp, and I was just kind of all over the place. And we had a disagreement about something simple. You ever had those before? Maybe it's just me. Okay, that's fine. But we had this disagreement, and we got to the church, and I'm about to go up to the building to go set up for kids service that night. We'd just come off of 14 days of kids camp where we felt a very powerful presence of God in our life, and we had a disagreement over something simple. And as we're getting out of the car, I was like, I don't have time to go get dinner. I don't have time to go eat. I have to get upstairs. I have to get things done. So you guys go get dinner. You guys go eat. I love you. I'll see you after church. I go to get out of the car, and my 2-year-old in the back seat, Benjamin, goes, I'm coming. No, you're not. Yes, I am. And he's trying to unbuckle himself. No, you stay in the car. You stay in the car. I come. I want to come, Dad. And you have morals and you have principles and convictions, and a 2-year-old will rock all of those at the same time when they go. And so I said, all right, come on. So I unbuckle him. Come on, because I realized something. I had been at camp with my oldest son. He'd gone to 2 camps with us. My daughter had come with us to one of the camps. But my youngest had only seen me 2 days out of the last 14 days. He missed his dad. So you know what? Come on. I can carry you where I need to go. Let's go. Well, the first obstacle happens when we go upstairs, and he wants to go up every step by himself. Now, normally it takes me about 10 seconds to get up a flight of stairs unless I'm winded, and it took me about 2.5 minutes to get up the stairs because Benjamin wanted to go one at a time, and then occasionally jump back off. I did it. And go back up. And he wanted to see all of the classrooms we had upstairs. I only needed to set up 2. But he wanted to see all of them. What is this room for? That's just the maintenance closet. You don't need to go in there. What's this room? That's the girls' bathroom. You don't go in there. And we just continued to go, and he wanted to see every room, and he wanted to see every single thing I did. And I was on a schedule. I had things that I had to get done. And I knew that if I had gone by myself, I would have just enough time to breathe, get a cup of water, and then get ready for service. And I didn't have time to wait and pull my 2-year-old with me who wanted to see every room, wanted to sit in every chair, turn on all the lights by himself, check for trash, just do whatever he wanted to do. But as we continued through the classrooms that I did not need to set up, we finally got to the ones I needed to do. And I started working. And what are you doing, Dad? I'm just getting some papers. I'll help. No, I really don't need that there. Yeah, I got this one, ripping them up and tearing. And I realized in a moment that I was becoming frustrated, but I held it together. I got through it. And as I looked at the time, I realized something amazing happened. It had only been 10 minutes. Should have taken me about 35. It had only been 10. Now, I know it's not Benjamin, because he's a 2-year-old and he's very slow. But something happened. I realized that I had more time than I thought I did. And I ended up being able to spend time with a little boy who wanted to spend time with his dad. And you know what Benjamin's experience of the whole time was? It wasn't me stress carrying him around. It was this. I got to look at every single classroom. I get to see where the big kids go. Oh, I love this Bible. Can I have this picture? I love that story. He got to enjoy every single second with me. And I ended up having enough time to eat dinner, be with my family, apologize to my wife, and have service. And later that week, I was getting ready for Sunday school, and we were looking at our story, and it was the story of Elijah and Elisha, where Elijah would go to heaven. And something clicked in my head, and I saw something for the first time that I'd never really noticed, but had been a theme of my life all through ministry, through growing up. And it was that if I found time for the people who came beside me, I would have more than enough time. Not only that, I would get to bless more people than I would by myself. And so I shared this as a devotional with the staff on Tuesday, and that's when Pastor said, I think you should preach that. So I apologize. This is the third time I've taught this message, essentially, because I also taught it to the kids last Sunday. So hopefully it lands this time. Third time's a charm. Thank you for the joke. I appreciate that. If you have your Bibles, we'll be in 2 Kings chapter 2, verse 2 today. This is the story of Elijah and Elisha. Now, as a young man, I always got them mixed up. And here's my little hint that I taught the kids. L becomes before S. So Elijah comes before Elisha. The J, the S, mix it up. That's how I remember it. You can take that home. You're welcome. But Elijah was a prophet, a man of God who knew that Elisha would be his next in line, would be his successor. And in our verse today, it says this. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were traveling. And Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here, for the Lord has told me to go to Bethel." But Elisha replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I will never leave you." So they went down together to Bethel. And if you skip ahead to verse 4, something similar happens. Elijah says to Elisha, "Stay here, for the Lord has told me to go to Jericho." But Elisha replied again, "As surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I will never leave you." So they went on together to Jericho. And a little bit further in verse 6, Elijah says to Elisha again, "Stay here, for the Lord has told me to go to the Jordan River." But again Elisha replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I will never leave you." So they went on together. It's a simple little part of the story. Elijah says, "I'm going," and Elisha says, "Where are we going?" Have you ever gone somewhere and you said, "I got to go do something," and someone says, "Yeah, where are we going? I'll go with you." It's called a tag along. When I had a younger brother, and I was allowed to go play at certain friends' houses if I brought my little brother with me. Now, most of the time, I didn't want my little brother with me. I wanted to go do my own thing, but Mom said, "You can go, but take Jonathan with you." Okay, Mom. And I'd bring my brother, and I didn't like it. But what I found out is that the tag-along here of Elisha going with Elijah was important for a lot of different reasons. It teaches us quite a lot about the nature between followers and teachers and mentors and mentees and the relationships we have in our life. And I'd like to go into them a little bit. The first principle that we learn from this story is that you follow the leader. It's a simple game when you're kids. Follow the leader. Simon says, "Mother, may I?" They're very easy little games that kids love to play because it's simple obedience and doing what you're told to do. As we get older, we don't necessarily like playing those games as much, but it's the times we should be focusing the most on the leaders of our lives who are impacting us. In Proverbs, verse 11 through 14, there's a verse that I love. that says, when there is no guidance, the people fall, but in abundance of counselors, there is victory. I count myself very blessed to have many different people in my life that I call a mentor or a teacher. Now, some of them don't know that they're my mentor. Some of them don't know who I am, and that's okay too. But I'm also very blessed that I have people in my life who are personally connected to me and know that they are pouring into my life and making a difference. One of those people is my wife's grandfather, Jerry. He was an evangelist for many years and a teacher for many years, and he is a very knowledgeable man of the Bible. And I find that admirable because oftentimes I find myself saying, which one was first, Elijah or Elisha? How many books were in the Old Testament again, Moses? How many? See, that's why I have people like him in my life. But I have someone like Jerry that I look at and say, man, not only is he a biblical scholar, he's a fantastic husband. He and his wife have been married for over 50 years. He loves the Lord. Every single morning, he prays for his family by name. And because I married into that family, I'm prayed for every day by name. And that is a man that I look at and say, man, I want to be like that. I have people in my life that I look at when I was working in a secular job. I had managers. Some that I liked, some that I didn't like. But the ones that I saw that said, man, they do their job with excellence. How do they do that? How are they able to keep track of those things? So I would ask questions, sometimes too many questions. Why do you do this? How come you put that there? Why don't you do this but that? Technically, the handbook says we should do this, but you don't do that. And I would find out how they did things, because I wanted to grow and become more like my leader. The different examples of the mentors in your life define what kind of life you're going to live. There's an old saying of, if you show me your circle of friends, I'll show you who you are. There's a truth to that too with your mentors. They'll show you who you're going to be in 5 years. We see that Elisha, though, whenever he was with Elijah told him, stay here, you don't need to go. I'm going to Jericho. I'm going to Bethel. I'm going to the Jordan. And Elisha always responded, yes, and I'm coming too. Because he was committed to staying with Elijah always. He said, as surely as the Lord lives and you yourself live, I will never leave you. I'm here. He was committed to following him, even if it was something he didn't need to be at. I have been blessed to have a great group of people in my life, a team of people that serve with me in kids ministry, and even at my old church when I was serving on a team, of people who showed up at a thing they didn't have to show up at. There are often times that I'll have a kids event, and do you know who some of the first people there are? My head pastor, my youth pastor, my worship pastor. That's not their department, but they're there for it anyway. They're committed. And I have people that serve with me that show up to meetings I didn't invite them to. Normally, that's not a great thing, but it's not because they're trying to be nosy. It's because they want to not miss a single thing. What's the heart behind this? Why do you do what you do? I want to be a part of that. Because once you're committed to someone, you can also be personally connected to them. This last year, I had multiple car issues with my Chevy. And I'm not a mechanic by trade, in case you can't tell. I do this for a living. And I had problems with my car, and I didn't have a ton of money and a ton of time to figure out what was wrong with it, to send it to a mechanic, because I didn't have the paycheck to cover it. And so I said, okay, I know what I'll do. I'm going to look up what's wrong with this car, find something on YouTube, and I have a TV in my garage, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this and hit pause. And, okay, now what's the next step? I don't know what that is. Okay, hang on, Google that. Okay, yeah, okay, there we go, there's that. And a video told me in 30 minutes to an hour, with a little bit of elbow grease, my car would be running fine. After 2.5 weeks, and multiple cuts and bruises, and my car looking like it wasn't a car anymore, to where the point my kid said, when did we get in an accident? Listen, back off. All right, I'm trying to get everything done. I realized something. I can learn from a video. I can learn from a source of information, but I didn't have any hands-on instruction of what to do next. And while the information was great, I needed someone to come in who knew what they were doing. And I have a father-in-law, praise God, who's a mechanic and had enough time that he came in on a weekend without me asking. I think it's because his daughter called him. But without me asking. And he shows up with some tools and says, let's see what's going on. And he helped me for the first little 10 minutes, and then he backed up. And he just started watching me work. And within about 25 minutes, I had got past the parts I couldn't get to. I fixed the problem that I thought was the only problem. He helped me identify 4 more problems that I didn't know about. Which sounds great until you realize you have to pay for it too. But he helped me realize there's more than I thought. And because I had that personal person there looking over my shoulder and telling me, listen, do this. Don't do that part. Here, try this. This tool will work better this way. Let me show you what I've learned in all my years of experience. I was able to make huge progress. So now my car is drivable. I can drive it around. I can enjoy it. And I'm happy to see it. Whenever it drives and moves around, I'm happy to say, man, I put work into that. And I think of my father-in-law, and I think of my people in my life, people in the church even who said, hey, I got some tools. What do you need? We got this. Man, that was a team effort. It wasn't just me. I learned how to do that because of the people that came beside me and said, let me help you with this. But Elijah also followed for different reasons. In Hebrew chapter 13, verse 7, there's a verse that says, remember your leaders, those who spoke to you the word of our God. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. Elisha was stuck with Elijah. He followed him everywhere he went. He saw what he did day in and day out. He wanted to know why you do that, how you do that, what do you do for this. He wanted to be personally connected with him, and he was faithful to serve him because, as we know, Elisha was going to be taking over for Elijah when Elijah left. But there's a key point of being a follower that I think sometimes we kind of lose. I was this way a little bit myself, even at jobs or in different opportunities where, man, I've learned a whole lot. I think I'm ready to take on the next thing. I'm ready for that promotion. I'm ready for that chance to lead that thing. But Elisha never was concerned with what was coming next. He was concerned with what needed to be done today. And we see actually in verse 3 of chapter 2, there was a group of prophets from Bethel that came to Elisha and asked him, did you know that the Lord is going to take your master away from you today? Of course I know, Elisha answered, but be quiet about it. Hush up. Shh. Sip it. I don't need to worry about that right now. Elisha knew what was coming next. It had already been promised. God told him, you will become the next prophet. He knew what was coming next for his life. But he wasn't sitting there the whole time going, he was standing with his leader saying, what do you need today, Elijah? How can I bless you? What can I do for you? He wasn't going, yeah, I'll help you with this. And then you're thinking of retiring soon? Or, how heard Cabo's nice. What's up with that? Playing some golf later? What are you thinking about? No, what do you need today? Hey, aren't you supposed to be taking over? Yeah, who cares? I'm not worried about what's coming next. I'm worried about what needs to happen today. Because right now, I'm not the leader. I'm a servant. I'm here to serve. I'm here to be used for the Lord and by my leader, the person who needs me. In my life, I have often found that the times that I have focused more on my person that I'm supposed to be helping and serving under, I have grown faster and faster than I ever did on my own, as I found from YouTube and cars. Having someone there personally to pour into me, to connect with, that I can then go to, why this, why that? I was able to make impacts that I'd never been able to make in my life. And we see later on even when Elijah and Elisha had crossed the Jordan River, Elijah took off his mantle, smacked the water, and it parted, and they walked across. There was a group of 50 prophets that watched from far away. The only one that went across the river was Elisha and Elijah, because he said, I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. I'm here. And on the other side, one-on-one, in an intimate moment, Elijah was able to ask, what do you want from me before I go? I want a double portion. I want to do what you do. You know that's a lot you're asking for. Yeah, I do, because I've spent time with you. I see what you do. I see the late nights. I see the things nobody else sees. But I still want to do it. That's what God's called me to do. And the man who would not leave Elijah alone, who would never stop following him from Bethel to Jericho to the Jordan, finally got separated when the Bible says a chariot of fire appeared between them. I love that it says between them. God had to finally say, okay, that's enough of that. And Elijah went to heaven, and Elisha saw it, and the mantle was left. And when he came back to the Jordan River, Elisha knew what Elijah had done. He had the tools to do it. And when he got to the river, he looked at heaven and he said, "Where is the God of Elijah?" He was still looking at his mentor. Even when he was in the leadership role, where's the God of Elijah? Smacked the water, it parted, he walked across. And everyone knew in that moment he has the spirit of Elijah on him. So my question now, we have people in our lives, people that we follow, people that pour into us. And normally I would leave it there because I talk to kids, and they're the ones who are young, and the people who get poured into the most, because honestly they need it the most. But now I'm talking to you, my adult leaders in my adult church, the big church as we call it in kids' church. Thank you, Kerrigan. I want to ask you a question. Who are you bringing along? I talked about Benjamin at the beginning. I love that little boy. He's my son. I want to spend time with him. I want to pour into him. I want to see him grow. I want to see him be used by God. When I started out in ministry, I'm 32, started at 14, 17 years ago, give or take. I don't know. I did the math earlier. I forgot it now. I've slept since then. A while back, a lady by the name Pastor Allison at my home church came up to me and said, "Hey, I would love for you to serve Sunday. Serve/you are serving." I don't know what she said directly. "But I would love for you to come and help on Sunday morning." Now, I did not know what that meant. And I was not really wanting to do that. I was a young teenager. I was very shy and very awkward. Now I'm just awkward. And I said, "I don't think that's for me. Thank you so much." He said, "Really, I just need you to hit space on the computer to keep the slides going." Well, I can do that. I mean, how hard can that be? So I go in my first Sunday, I hit space for an hour, and I loved every second of it. My next job in ministry was taking out trash. We would come out of service on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, and a man would come up and he'd pick up trash bags, and he was a pastor on staff. If no one collected trash, he would go and he would pick up the trash and take it out to the dumpster. So my job was to make sure he didn't have to pick up the trash because I was young and I could do it. So I'd go over and I'd collect the trash, sometimes taking it from his hands because I was slower, and maybe I got talking. And I would say, no, I got this. This is my job. Let me do it. And slowly over time, I ended up becoming someone who started teaching. I started with puppets because I didn't have to be seen on stage. And then it was, okay, well, why don't you do a skit without the puppets? And then it was, okay, well, why don't you sing? And they really quickly found out that's not my gifting. And so they brought me back to say, maybe we can do teaching. Maybe we can do teaching. And luckily, the Lord graced me there. And I began teaching. And then all of a sudden, one Sunday, a man came in that was much older than me, probably in his 40s. At the time, I was early 20s. And the kid pastor came to me. She says, "Hey, you're training him." No, I'm not. He could be my dad. Well, he's never done kids ministry, and you've been doing it for a while, so you're going to teach him. Okay, hit space bar for an hour. I'll come check on you in a minute. But when I left my home church, I had been involved in the ministry for so long that my home church did something that really blessed me. They gave me this book. It says, "Here's to those who inspire you that you don't even know it." And they have pictures in here, and I'm not going to put them on the screen because I'm going to save you that. It's pictures of me in my youth, mainly, so that's why you don't need to see it. It's me without a beard. It's not a pretty look. But they put all these pictures in of different times of ministry, and they had kids sign it. Kids from the kids' church signed it, which is sweet. It made me all, teary-eyed. But then there were people in the back, one of which was that man that I started training. And he said, "Thank you for what you did, pouring into me." And then I continued on a little bit further, and there's pictures of me and my wife. And there's teenagers who are writing down saying, "Thank you for showing us what a Christian marriage looks like." These are teenagers that are writing this. Teenagers that we have started teaching when they were young, and now they started coming alongside us, and we actually started training them. In fact, at kids camp, I was completely surprised when I showed up for little kids camp, and a tall, 6'5" teenage boy, he's 18, that I knew since he was this tall and was my neighbor, Zane, came up to me and he said hello, and I thought it'd be his normal voice, "Hello," and it was "hello." And I was very upset by the height and the tone of his voice at that time, but he was there deaning at camp. And he was there serving the district and serving these kids. And I was kind of surprised, mainly by the fact that he was old enough to do that, because that shouldn't add up. But also because he came up to me later and said, man, I loved getting to see you today. I was so happy to see you. Man, thank you for all that you did. You're welcome. What am I supposed to say to that? But then he started telling me, man, it's super cool because I was here and I was doing this thing, and there's this other kid who started helping out, and he was telling me that he was doing it because I asked him to do it. And you asked me to do kids' church all that time ago. That's super cool. And he could see him start to realize that thing of, man, you poured into me, now I get to pour back to somebody else. And I got to have a moment that I think Elijah got to have with Elisha, of pouring into that next one. The person who's coming behind you. I don't tell you all that to pat myself on the back. I don't need to do that. One, I can barely get back there. My arms are short. But mainly just because I don't care what I do. I don't worry about what comes from me. I care about what's coming next. As a kids pastor, my focus is on the next thing, the next generation, the people who come behind me. And my goal is to make sure that the next generation has the best church and the best services and the best relationship with the Lord possible, better than mine, better than what I've done. I don't want the best times, harvest time to kids ever had was when Pastor David was there. I want them to go, man, when Pastor David left, it took off. Cool. High fives all around. That's what I want. I want to see the next generation hungry for the Lord, hungrier than I was. I want to see them worship with a true heart and spirit of worship that even I don't have. And the great thing is at camp, we had almost 3,000 or over 3,000 kids. Amanda, how many? Yeah, over 3,000 kids at all these camps came. And let me tell you, when you're standing in a theater with 5 to 700 kids singing out worship, it's powerful. It wrecks you because you see the heart of what's coming next. So I ask again, who are you bringing with you? Elijah anointed Elisha in 1 Kings chapter 19, verse 19. And it says this. Elijah went and found Elisha, son of Shaphat, that's how I'm going to say it, plowing a field. There were 20 teams of oxen in the field, and Elisha was plowing with the 12th team. Elijah went over to him and threw his cloak across his shoulders and walked away. Elisha left the oxen standing there, ran after Elijah, and said to him, "First let me go kiss my mother and father goodbye, and then I will go back with you." Elijah replied, "Go back and think about what I have done." When Elisha returned to his oxen, he slaughtered them and used the wood of the plow to build a fire to roast them and passed around the meat to the townspeople, and they all ate. And then he went with Elijah as his assistant. What I find interesting in that story is it reminds me of me. Because when I was called into ministry, it wasn't because I was leading some big Bible study or because I was found halfway through reading the Bible for the third time that year. I was someone that somebody saw something in a field, and they said, "You need to come serve." And I have been blessed to be able to do the same thing to people in my life now, of going to people and saying, "You know what, I see something in you. You could teach Sunday school." When I was gone at camp, I had people step up to fill the role that I wasn't there to fill. And can I say, praise God, they still had church. They still did it. And it was great because new people got to flex their talents and their gifts that God had brought into them. Elijah was in the field. He was called to serve, and he said yes. And then Elijah's job was to simply do everything he was going to do anyway, but make sure Elisha saw it. In Philippians 2, verse 3, it says, "Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourself." Like I said, I don't want my ministry or the ministry of Kids Church at harvest time to peak with me. I'm not the peak. I'm just a slope. I'm a ramp, really. I want the best days to be what comes next. I want whoever takes over the kids' ministry of Harvest Time next to have everything, the groundwork set and ready to launch them even further than before. I tell Pastor Blake when he came onto the staff, I asked him, I said, "What do you want from the kids as they move into youth? Because I want them to be absolutely ready for what you need them to do so they can step into that next phase of their life. What do you need from me?" What can I do to serve you, to make sure that no matter what happens next, it doesn't matter about me. I know I'm not perfect. I'm well aware of it. I'm not skilled in everything. I'm very unskilled, really, when you look at the graph of what I can do. I'm very unskilled. Thank you, Peter, for laughing at that, my son. But the truth is, that's fine. It's not about me. Before I came up to preach today, I prayed a very simple prayer. God, it's not me, it's you. Hope you show up. Because in honesty, that's the truth of it. That's what we do. In all things, we are not doing it. We're doing it to bring the next people up, to pour into them, to see God's work done further and further. Leading sometimes, though, requires more of us. It requires us to give more. It requires us to do more. Sometimes it requires us to define more. When I came in to serve and we started talking about what do we want Wednesday nights to look like? What do we want Sundays to look like? How do we want the onboarding process of first-time visitors to look like? We realized we have to define that. We have to say, this is what happens at Kids Church. This is what happens with this. This is what happens with this. Which then means that's the bar. And because I said that's what we do, I can't go under it. I have to hit the bar every time, which requires more from me. But then the people who come along and serve with me go, well, that's what we do. So that's what we do. Pastor has a great value, or a core value for our church, which is we do everything in excellence. Everything we do is in excellence. Doesn't mean we're excellent. And you nailed that one. It's excellence. Because everything can be improved. Everything can be better. But you give it your all. You do everything you do as unto the Lord and not man. So, in Titus chapter 2, verse 7 and 8, this is what I believe it kind of narrows it down for. In everything, set them an example by doing what is good. In your teaching, show integrity, seriousness, and soundness of speech that cannot be condemned, so that those who oppose you may be ashamed because they have nothing bad to say about us. Everything we do, we set that example. We set that integrity for ourselves. Because when you're leading, it's required. Now, some of you may say, well, thank goodness I don't lead. I just go to church. I hate to tell you this, you lead. Sorry to break the news to you. How many of you have kids? Congratulations, you lead. Welcome to the team. How many of you have people in your life that you're close to? Congratulations, you're on the team. You're a leader. The people in our life that God has put there in our path are the people that we lead. I've told people this before in this church, and I believe it wholeheartedly for myself. I was called to be a pastor at a young age, but I didn't become a pastor first. I got married and became a husband first. Then I had kids. And then years later, I became a pastor. And I think the Lord did that so that way I would remember the order of importance. I'm a husband first. I take care of my wife. I lead my wife. I'm a father before I'm a kids pastor. And lastly, I'm a pastor. Are they all important? Absolutely. But there's tiers to where I put my importance. Because as much as I want to lead your kids and lead this church and do great things, if I have the most successful kids ministry, we have 300 kids showing up every week in the altar filled with the Holy Ghost, but my son hates the church, I failed. If I go my whole life and I grow this ministry and I do all these things for God and I have all these victories, but my kids don't know the Lord, or they say, you do that on Sunday, but you don't do that Monday, I failed. And that's hard because unfortunately I'm not perfect. And I've made that mistake. Like I said at the beginning, I had a fight with my wife after church, kids camp. On the way to church, we had a fight. My kids had to sit there and listen to us argue and fight. And then they had to see me come back afterwards and go, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. But I have to do that. I have to lead my family. It's not an option. It's my requirement. Who are you leading? Who are the people in your life that God has put there? Maybe you don't do what we do. You don't preach. You don't teach. But you have a career. You have opportunities in your life. Is that the success bar for you? Because you can have all the money in the world and all the success of a job, but if your family falls apart and your marriage crumbles, you're not a success. It's a hard thing to hear, but it's the truth. We are called to lead. We are called to do more. Jesus was our leader. He did everything right. He made the hard calls. He did everything that he was supposed to do. And we're expected to do the same. He says, love others. Love people as you love the church. Go and make disciples. Those are all things that Jesus expects of us, not as asking of us. So as the worship team gets ready to head up, I just have a simple question. 2 of them that I'd like you to ponder. Who is your Elisha? Who are the people in your life that God has brought into? Whether it be your kids, whether it be friends, close family members, maybe you're a husband or wife. But God placed them there for a reason. God has them there for a reason. I oftentimes as a kid thought, why do I have the parents I do? Not to be mean to my parents, because they're going to watch this later on. I love my mom and dad. But I often thought, why do I have these parents? How does that work? Because I wasn't saved growing up, it was, I guess that's random chance. That's just how it landed. Now that I'm older, I know the Lord put me with my parents. He knew who they were. He knew where they'd go. And he knew that they were going to be who I'd be under. My kids are my kids because that's who God gave me to serve and to love. And I think Jesus explains it best that we are not leaders, we are servants. The Son of Man did not come to serve, but to be served, and to give his life as a ransom for many. That is how we lead. Any good leader is the one who will go and pick up the trash when no one looks at it. The one who takes ownership for the building. Can I just say, you guys don't see sometimes the stuff that pastor does on a Monday when no one's here. You don't see the things that your leaders do that really they shouldn't have to do. Pastor's not paid to go pick up trash, to make sure building's good, to check for ants, to fix holes in the roof. He's not paid to change the light bulbs when they go out. But do you know who will be the first one there if no one else does? Pastor Nathan. Because he understands that that is who God called him to be. That is who God has called us to be. I'm not asking you to do a whole bunch so that way we don't have to work. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking you to look at yourself, look at your life, and think, what am I doing? Who am I pouring into? Some of you are maybe sitting here going, really, I don't have, my kids are grown, they're settled, they serve the Lord, this and that. I've done my time. I'm ready to enjoy the fruits of my labor. I'd like to share with you a story of a man at my home church. His name was Dr. Charles. Dr. Charles was a very wise man. He served on different boards of colleges and deans occasionally. He had a doctorate. He was very wise, biblically sound man who loved his wife for many, many years. I don't know the exact total that they were married before he passed. Yeah, over 60, yeah. But do you know where Dr. Charles served at my home church? Served in a lot of places. Do you know his favorite place was? Wednesday nights, standing in the back with earmuffs in to help with the noise, listening to the worship band of the youth, praising. He didn't know those songs. He didn't like half the songs. But man, he was in there. Yeah, I'm going to worship with you kids. And when small groups would break out, he was with the high school boys. And he would pour into those boys and love on them and bring them in and say, listen, come here, let me talk to you. I've been some places. I've done some things. Let me teach you what I know. This was a man who, even when he should have been enjoying his golden years, said, nope, golden years doesn't mean I'm done. It just means I've got the gold, and I'm going to share it. I'm going to go pass that on because I don't need it. But these people coming up behind me do. Dr. Charles was a man who served the next generation when he shouldn't have to. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. So who is your Elisha? Let me encourage you. They're there, even if you don't know they're there. As I said, I have mentors that don't know they're my mentors. Some of the people in this church are mentors to me and to my wife. You don't even know it. But the way you live your lives shows us and encourages us. There are people that are watching you. They may not go to this church. They may just know you from the neighborhood. They're watching you. Are you going to lead them the way Elijah led Elisha and said, come on, I'm going to show you what I do, show you why I do it, how I do it? Or are you going to take a back seat to it? And the second question is, who is your Elijah? Who are the people in your life that you look to? Most days when I'm driving home, the person I call is my wife. Let her know I'm coming home, see if I need to stop and get anything. But if I have some time, do you know the next person I generally call is? My mother. My father. And then I have two other people. One is a pastor friend of mine who was my youth pastor years ago. He's someone that I trust explicitly with all the things of my life. And then there's another person who's a friend of mine who's younger than me, but I see the fire he has for God, and that's something that inspires me, and I'll call him. The Elijahs are the people in your life that you call when you need advice, when you need someone to talk to. The people that you see and you say, man, I want to be like that. Maybe you're new to this kind of walk of life. Maybe you're not churched like I was when I was growing up. I came into faith late. I just knew VeggieTales. I didn't know the Bible. I don't even know how I knew VeggieTales because we weren't saved. But I found people that saw me, a young man, 14, 13 years old, not saved, no church background except the occasional Christmas or Easter, and said, hey, why don't you come with us? I want to take you to lunch. Why don't you come hang out with us? Why don't you come to this service with us? We'd love to take you out to eat. Hey, it's your birthday. I'm going to buy you lunch today. And these people made impacts in my life that have echoed and grown and sowed seeds that have taken root into who I am. And the best thing about growing something is the harvest. When you get to see what comes out and you get to see what's there, I'm so honored to do what I do because I get to see people's lives change. And I've done it long enough now. I have people like my friend Zane, who I see who's graduated high school, is serving the Lord, and is at a kids' church camp, running it, saying, man, I love it. This is great. I know there are people in my life who look at me now and say, yeah, we get that. We're feeling the same thing right now with you. So who are those people you're looking to? If you need someone, if you need an example, I have a perfect one. His name is Jesus. He lived 100% human life, but did everything right. He loved people, but he loved them enough to not leave them where they were, not leave them in their mess, not leave them in darkness, but to call them out of it. Not to condemn them, but to convict them and to save them. He sacrificed everything. He served the people who would betray him. I love the story of Passover, and you see Jesus washing the feet of the disciples, because it doesn't say that he skipped Judas. He washed his feet too. That's the kind of person I want to be like. It doesn't matter what I do. It doesn't matter how I'm treated. It doesn't matter what they say about me. I want to serve the way Jesus served. If you don't have someone in your life that can point you the way like that, you know Jesus. If you don't today, I encourage you, come up to the front with the prayer team and pray. Find out who he is. He'll change your life. You'll never be the same. But my message is simple. Are you making room for the people who are coming beside you? Because if you don't make room for them, somebody else will. And unfortunately, not everybody else has the interest you do in them. Parents, you have kids, grandkids, people that you care about and you love. Pour into them. Be authentic. Be 100% with them. They need it. God has given you your mission field. You're already a missionary in your own home. Let's get them saved. Let's do the work. So that way when the time comes and we get to heaven, I'm going to be excited to get to heaven and see the different people there. I want to meet David from the Bible. That's just because of the name mainly. But what I want most of all is when I get there, I want to see my son. I want to see my daughter. I want to see my other son. I want to see my family. That is who you are pouring into. Don't take it lightly.